With clothing, my suggestion is just the simpler the better. The country that you're going to be in is really hot, and so you don't necessarily want to wear a lot of layers. Most of the clothing I took was just, simple cotton, things that are breathable, and you'll be proselyting and walking all the time. So you want to get a good pair of those like hiking sandals, and you'll want to bring a nice pair of flats as well, so you can use for zone conference, for church, things like that. Cape Verde is relatively safe. It's one of the more stable like African countries, and you don't have very many problems with robberies, things like that. It's pretty rare when that happens. But I would also suggest just simplicity in what you're wearing. You obviously don't want to call attention away from the message that we have, and the people there, they do live very humble, very simple lives. And so I really enjoyed it there. Our appearance wasn't a big concern. They don't really care that much what you look like. Obviously, you want to be well presented as a representative of the Lord, but they didn't judge us on our appearance and things like that. And so I would just say don't stress about it too much. Just bring simpler things and things that are durable. You don't want to bring a whole lot of lace and things like that, because if your power goes out, if your washer's not working, you're going to be washing your clothes by hand. And so I would say, bring things that are going to last a little bit longer. Yeah. For the sisters, and I think just for any missionaries going there, just follow the rules that the mission president gives you. They'll instruct you on how to use water filters there, because you do need to drink filtered water. They'll give you tips on how to clean your produce. You need to bleach it when you bring it home. You can't just, buy it at the store and eat it. You have to clean it with bleach and things like that. And if you follow those tips, you won't get sick, or not very often at least. I would recommend to the sisters that you do, I took supplements of calcium and a multivitamin. I took things like that because sometimes the diet isn't very well rounded. Especially some islands, it's kind of hard to get produce, things like that on a regular basis. But yeah, the mission president's great. They'll give you lots of information about how to stay healthy and good things to eat, things like that. So I would just follow their advice. Yeah. I would recommend that while you're there in Cape Verde, that you are wise and that you're obedient. The mission president is inspired, and he sets the rules and the guidelines that he does for a reason. And probably the person you want to listen to the most, above all else, is the Holy Ghost. There were several instances on my mission where we were out proselyting, and at nighttime there, especially those last, maybe between 7:30 and 9 or 9:30, those last couple hours of your proselyting, it is pretty dark. They don't have a lot of street lights. People don't have porch lights. You might want to bring a little flashlight to proselyte with, but there were distinct impressions that we received, my companion, that, we shouldn't go down that street tonight. And it may be a street that we've walked down 10 other times, but on that night, at that time, we both felt that we shouldn't walk there, and we didn't, and nothing happened. And so that's what's important, that nothing happened because we avoided whatever that situation was. But then there's also importance to listen to the Spirit and who you should talk to on the street. There were also lots of times where you just feel, I should go talk to that person right there. They look like they're having a bad day, and you can go and speak to them, and they'll open up to you, and you'll realize, they do have a need for the gospel, and you'll be able to help them. So listen to the Spirit while you're out there, and you'll be okay. So
I mentioned before that some people can be hung up on oh, you're American. I think that's compounded a little bit more with the sisters. I would say that because that was my experience. I'm not exactly sure how it is for the elders. I know that some elders did have problems with women coming on to them, but our mission president would say, sisters, you have a special light in your eyes, and people it pulls them in, it draws them in, which is good because you can point that to Christ, but you have to be careful because there's some people that are confused by it. And without a doubt, it's hard in the mission sometimes because you'd receive unwanted attention, but as long as you kept clear boundaries and you obeyed the rules in terms of don't go teach a single male without a woman accompanying you, and also just be careful with your relationships with people in the church and out. So even in the church, you have to be careful. Make sure that everyone knows that you're devoted to the Lord and that you're going to be obedient, because sometimes being nice can come off as sort of flirtatious, and it can cause problems. And so you just, even if you have to say so verbally, like in my second area, there was a member, he really, really liked me, and to the point where there was one day where he surprised me and my companion, and he like proposed to me, essentially, and it was really, really awkward. And so I just had to sort of really make sure he knew, I am a sister, I'm devoted to the Lord. I can't do that. I really appreciate that you respect me and you care for me, but the best way to channel that is to just serve the Lord. And so things like that will happen, without a doubt, in the mission. Uncomfortable things will happen, but if you're being obedient, and don't be afraid to talk to your leaders, your district leader, zone leader, or your president if you're feeling like there's a threat anywhere, because sometimes that could happen too. Luckily, mine never got to that level, but don't be afraid to talk with them about it, because they're not going to get mad at you. It's not your fault. But if necessary, they could transfer you, or they could talk with that person. So it's nothing to worry about. There was never any assault or anything in my mission. It's a pretty safe mission, but there's still sometimes those moments where, it can get uncomfortable. And I'm sure that's echoed all across the world for sisters. So yeah, just be careful and just be happy and be good. Yeah. I mentioned before that you want to wear like lighter clothes. Make sure that those aren't like transparent. So like this is like a pretty light shirt, but it's not transparent. So things like that are really good. That way, like, you can get a breeze and stuff. But the problem is, if you have skirts like that, then, you have issues of it blowing around in the wind. Something that a few of my companions and I did is we sewed rocks into the bottom of our skirts. So the skirt is still really like flowy and light, but it doesn't fly where you don't want it to. So yeah, it's actually pretty easy. So just get a couple pebbles or whatever, and just if you have a little sewing kit, or even just like tape for a day, you just tape them in. There was one day I didn't have time to get rocks, and so I just taped our keys. Like, it's just funny because some of the areas are really, really windy, super windy, like unbelievably windy. So it's problematic sometimes, but yeah, it's a fun little tidbit there. So.